not all danger roars. Sometimes it whispers sweetly in words that erode your spirit. In the quiet corners of conversation, a man may reveal not love but control, fear, or shadow. Today, we're not chasing monsters under the bed. We're unmasking the ones hiding behind charm and charisma. If he says any of these 5 things, don't rationalize, don't wait, walk away. Your psyche already knows. It's time you listened. There are moments in life when truth doesn't arrive with thunder, but with a whisper. It enters the room masked as affection, cloaked in charm, and it speaks in words that seem ordinary, almost harmless, but deep beneath something ancient stirs, a darker force, the shadow. That hidden self within us all slips through in language before it ever shows up in action. When a man says, "You're too sensitive," you must stop and listen, not just with your ears, but with your inner eye. This isn't just a casual phrase, it's a subtle erasure, a warning, a sign that the emotional world, your emotional world, is being dismissed as weakness instead of honored as truth. He is not engaging with you, he is engaging with his own discomfort. He cannot face your feelings because he cannot face his own, and here lies the secret most people miss. The words he uses are not just directed at you, they are reflections of a conflict inside him. He is speaking to parts of himself he has disowned and projecting them onto you. You become the mirror, and he cannot bear the reflection. The sensitive child he once was, silenced. The tender self that was never safe to be, now buried. But buried things speak, don't they? They find a way out. So the moment you hear, "You're too sensitive," pause. Don't defend, don't explain, just notice, because what follows is often a pattern, not an accident. When a man attempts to rewrite your reality, what he's truly doing is protecting the mask, the persona he's constructed to survive. But masks don't love, masks can't connect, and if you stay, you won't be loved. You'll be managed. Think back. How many times have you betrayed your own intuition in the name of giving him the benefit of the doubt? How often have you softened your truth to keep the peace? That peace, my friend, is not peace. It's submission dressed as harmony. The words "you're too sensitive" are not a comment. They are a code, a signal that something is being denied, repressed, projected. And in the world of the psyche, denial becomes danger, not because of the words themselves, but because of what they make you silence inside you. And now, if that phrase hides a wound, what about when he says, "You're overreacting, stay with me"? Because that one runs even deeper. You're overreacting. At first glance, it sounds like a disagreement, maybe even concern. But listen more closely. Not just to the words, but to the energy beneath them. What is he really saying? He's not just questioning your response, he's placing himself above it. He's positioning his version of reality as the only valid one, and yours? Too much, unreasonable, exaggerated. But here's the truth. When someone tells you you're overreacting, they're often defending themselves from an emotional truth they don't want to face. They feel threatened, not by your volume, but by your clarity. Not by your emotion, but by your intuition. And rather than meet you in that space, they retreat behind a wall of control. In psychological terms, this is a defense mechanism. And behind that defense is usually shame, fear, or a desperate need to preserve the persona, the social mask. That mask cannot admit vulnerability, it cannot acknowledge fault, and so your reaction becomes the problem, not the thing that caused it. And here's where it gets dangerous, when you start to doubt your own perception, when you start to second-guess your gut in order to maintain the relationship, you slowly begin to abandon yourself. Little by little, thought by thought, until one day you don't even recognize the person in the mirror, because that person no longer trusts what they feel. Do you see it now? The phrase, "you're overreacting," isn't about you being too emotional. It's about him being too unwilling to confront what he's caused. The archetype here is the wounded king, the one who would rather gaslight the truth than surrender the throne of control. He is not curious about your experience, he is afraid of it, because your truth disrupts the false kingdom he's built. And so, you become the threat, not because of what you've done, but because of what you see. Your knowing, your center. Now ask yourself, what happens when that voice says, "You're imagining things"? Because next, we descend even deeper into the distortion of reality, and there things start to twist. You're imagining things. Now the ground begins to shift. It's subtle at first, a breeze, barely noticeable, until it becomes a storm beneath your feet. When someone tells you this, it's not just a dismissal, it's a distortion, a rewritten, a quiet reprogramming of your reality. This phrase doesn't simply question your observation, it questions your sanity. It plants a seed of doubt, not about the event itself, but about your ability to know what's real. And once that seed takes root, it grows fast, fed by confusion, watered by guilt, and hidden beneath layers of self-blame. But let's take a deeper look beneath the surface. In psychological terms, this phrase is a form of projection. The speaker, often unknowingly, casts their own denial onto you. They are unable or unwilling to face what they've done, what they've said, what they've revealed. So instead, you become the problem. You become delusional, paranoid, overthinking. It's not just gaslighting, it's archetypal inversion. The truth-teller becomes the mad one. The seer is turned into the fool. The one who senses the cracks is labeled as unstable simply because they can see what others refuse to confront. And if you're not careful, you start to play along. You start to adjust your reality to fit his. You learn to edit your voice, silence your instincts, apologize for things you didn't do, all just to avoid hearing that phrase again. But here's the question you must ask yourself. Who benefits when your reality is denied? It is almost always the one who cannot face his own. The man who says, "You're imagining things," is often the one running from his shadow. He cannot integrate what he has done, so instead, he fractures your truth. If he can't destroy the evidence, he'll destroy the witness. This isn't just emotional avoidance, it's psychic disorientation. And over time, it fractures the self. The deeper self, the one that knows, even when it can't explain. So, pause when you hear those words. Ask yourself, do I feel crazy because I am, or because someone needs me to feel that way? And then, listen carefully, because next comes one of the most seductive lines of all. No one else has ever had a problem with me. That one is not just defense, it's performance, and it's built to isolate you. No one else has ever had a problem with me. Now the mask gets polished, the stage is set. This phrase is not just a denial, it's a performance, a carefully rehearsed line meant to redirect the spotlight away from the behavior and onto you. Think about it. What is he really saying? He's not trying to understand. He's not curious about your experience. Instead, he's building a case, not for truth, but for his innocence. He invokes the invisible jury, the ghost of ex-partners, old friends, past lovers. He makes them all rise up, one by one, as silent witnesses to your supposed overreaction, and in doing so, he isolates you. But this is not about other people. This is about you, here, now, and the reality you are naming. The moment he says, no one else had a problem, he's saying, the problem must be you. Psychologically, this is deflection wrapped in projection. He cannot confront the discomfort of being seen, so he shields himself behind a wall of imagined approval. Archetypally, this is the false hero. The one who wears the shining armor, tells the perfect story, but cannot bear the wound beneath the costume. He needs you to doubt yourself so he can stay untouchable. And if you're not grounded in your own sense of self, you may start to internalize it. You'll ask, am I the problem? Am I overanalyzing? You'll scan your past for evidence that you're too much, but what you're really doing is shrinking to fit his story. But here's the truth no one tells you. Just because others didn't speak up doesn't mean they didn't suffer. Silence is not proof of harmony. It is often the residue of exhaustion, of self-abandonment, of walking away without a voice. So when he says, no one else had a problem, you must remember that phrase is not a mirror, it's a mask. And masks are not built for intimacy, they are built for survival. But there's something even more manipulative, even more quietly corrosive. It sounds like love, looks like protection, but it's anything but. It's when he says, I'm the only one who really loves you. And that's when possession tries to disguise itself as devotion. I'm the only one who really loves you. Now the game changes. Now we step into the illusion of devotion, where the most dangerous forms of control are wrapped in the language of love. At first it sounds like reassurance, like loyalty, like something you've longed to hear. But beneath the surface, something darker stirs. What he's really saying is that love is no longer a gift, it's a weapon. It's not a bridge between two people, it's a leash. Because if he's the only one who really loves you, then where can you go? Who else could possibly understand you, trust you, want you? This isn't affection, it's possession. And the tragedy? It's often spoken in moments of vulnerability, moments when you're hurting, questioning, doubt. It arrives like a lifeline, but it's not meant to lift you, it's meant to bind you. Psychologically, this is the voice of the possessive archetype, the one who confuses love with ownership, connection with control. He doesn't want you to feel loved, he wants you to need him. He doesn't want mutual growth, he wants emotional dependency. And if you've ever been uncertain of your worth, if you've ever carried old wounds of abandonment, invisibility, or rejection, these words don't just land, they stick. They echo inside the very place that longs to be seen. And that's the trap. Because now, if you try to leave, you're not just walking away from a relationship, you're abandoning the only person who truly sees you, or so he says. But real love doesn't isolate. It doesn't declare itself the only source of safety. Real love expands your world. It doesn't shrink it down to one person's approval. So when he says, I'm the only one who really loves you, hear the subtext. Without me, you are unloved. And that is psychological captivity. Ask yourself, Why does love need to be exclusive to feel true? Why does it have to erase all others to prove its value? Because love that needs to isolate you is not love. It's fear, dressed up in pretty words. And yet, sometimes the deepest manipulation doesn't come through power, it comes through pain. So what happens when he says, "You'll never find someone like me again"? You won't want to miss what that really means, because that phrase is the final echo of the wounded ego. You'll never find someone like me again. Now we reach the final act, the closing line of the wounded ego. It sounds like a statement of confidence, almost like pride, but beneath it lies fear, insecurity, a desperate attempt to leave you with doubt, just enough to keep the door open. What he's really saying is, without me, you will be lost. This is not about love, it's about legacy. Not what he gave you, but what he wants to leave behind in you. And what he wants to leave is lack. The kind that lingers. The kind that makes you wonder, what if he was right? What if this was as good as it gets? This phrase is often delivered at the edge of a breakup, or just after a fight, or when you're starting to reclaim your sense of self. It's not a goodbye. It's a spell, spoken to bind you with regret. Psychologically, it's the voice of the wounded ruler, an archetype who cannot bear the loss of control, the loss of admiration. He doesn't just want to be loved, he wants to be irreplaceable. And if he can't have you, he wants your memory of him to eclipse all others. He wants to live on in your self-doubt. But here's the truth. When someone says, "You'll never find someone like me again," they reveal more about their fear of being forgotten than they do about your future. Real love doesn't threaten your sense of possibility. It doesn't leave you afraid of freedom. It blesses your path, even if it means walking different roads. So ask yourself, why does he need you to believe you won't find better? What does he gain from planting that seed? The answer? Power. Even in absence, even in silence. But here's where it shifts. Because once you recognize these phrases, once you see them for what they are, you begin to awaken something far older, far stronger within yourself. You begin to remember that the truth isn't in what you're told, it's in what you know. And now, the question becomes, what do you do when you realize you've been walking beside someone's shadow and not their soul? Because next, we're going to explore not just what to walk away from, but how to walk back to yourself. I didn't mean it like that. Now we enter the subtle realm, the place where language becomes a smokescreen, where meaning is twisted just enough to keep you confused, not angry, uncertain, not empowered. It's a phrase that slips out so easily, disarming, disorienting. It pretends to be clarification, but it's often just camouflage. What he's really doing when he says, "I didn't mean it like that," is not clarifying. He's retreating from responsibility, from accountability, from the emotional impact of his words. He's not meeting you where you are. He's pulling you into his version of events. And the moment you begin explaining why it did hurt or why it did feel wrong, you're already on the defensive. Psychologically, this is the voice of the trickster archetype, not the playful kind, but the shadowed one, the one who manipulates meaning to avoid truth. He speaks in riddles, then blames you for misunderstanding them, and what begins as a moment of emotional discomfort becomes a fog of self-doubt. You start asking yourself, am I being too sensitive again? Did I overthink it? Was I just triggered? But here's the thing, Emotional pain isn't about his intention, it's about your experience. And when someone constantly invalidates that experience, whether through charm or passive dismissal, they're not trying to connect, they're trying to control the narrative. He wants to stay the good guy. He wants you to believe he's harmless, but even harmless words, when spoken without care, can become weapons, especially when they strike at the softest part of you, the part that just wants to be understood. So when he says, "I didn't mean it like that," ask yourself, why is my reaction the problem instead of his expression? Because this pattern, this need to reshape the truth to suit his image, doesn't stop here. It evolves. It becomes sharper, more convincing, more subtle, until one day you no longer trust your own perception at all. So now, we must ask, what does it mean to truly see? And more importantly, what does it cost you when you stop seeing yourself clearly? Because next, we go even deeper, into the silence between the words, into the space where the unspoken begins to speak. Sometimes, the most dangerous words are the ones that are never said at all. It's the silence, the absence, the hollow space where communication should live, but doesn't. When a man stops speaking, stops explaining, stops showing up with truth, you may think it's peace. But in truth, it's psychological abandonment, a slow erosion of intimacy, a withdrawal of presence, cloaked in indifference. You ask him a question, he shrugs. You express your pain, he goes quiet. You try to connect, and he disappears behind a wall of silence that feels colder than rage. Now, don't mistake this for calmness. This is not the stillness of emotional maturity. This is the shadow of withdrawal, an unspoken message that says, you do not matter enough to respond to, and that message wounds, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in soft, invisible ones. The kind of wounds that don't bleed, but fade you out. This kind of silence is not neutral. It is deeply psychological. It is the voice of the ghost archetype, the one who punishes without confrontation, who disappears, not because he has nothing to say, but because he wants you to feel the lack of him. He wants his absence to speak louder than your presence. And slowly, you begin to fill in the blanks. You soften your words, question your tone, shape your truth so gently that it barely has weight. You adapt, not out of growth, but out of fear of being met with that cold, hollow silence once again. What he isn't saying becomes louder than anything he ever did, and in the silence, you begin to vanish. But here's the truth. Relationships are built on dialogue, not monologue, not withdrawal, not stone walls dressed as emotional stability. So when he stops speaking, ask yourself, why do I feel the need to keep talking just to fill the void? Because when communication dies, connection follows, and what remains is not a relationship. It's a quiet collapse. And now we've walked through the shadow, one phrase at a time. But this isn't just about him. It's about you. What you've tolerated, what you've absorbed, what you've mistaken for love. So the real question now is not, can he change? The question is, are you ready to stop abandoning yourself? Because the path forward begins with your voice, not his.